Welcome to Randolph High School. We're going to show you how we've used SOLE, or self-organized learning environments, to empower students and help them become co-pilots in their learning. We hope you enjoy. This is our story.
SOLE stands for self-organized learning environment, and to me that really means student-centered. So you want to hook the students somehow to explore whatever they want during that time frame, and you want them to learn as much as they can in that time frame.
Where students are given questions, I typically give them essential questions that they can come up and take all the information and kind of put it together and come up with their own answers and determination of what the answer to the question is, but there's not usually a right answer. So
a SOLE lesson to me is exactly what the acronym stands for, a self-organized learning environment where students get the opportunity to do everything soup to nuts, and the teacher becomes more of a facilitator of the lesson and not a director of the lesson.
I am still working on that. It's always hard to get a great question, and I use essential questions in my classroom, but my SOLE lessons have typically focused on a big idea that we're going to introduce in the unit. So I use my SOLE lessons to get the kids engaged and, one, making discoveries about what we're going to learn about, but also learning what they don't know, so that when I jump into the unit, they're asking questions of me because they said, we don't understand exactly why the Islamic achievements were, X, Y, Z. Please explain. So it's a great way to introduce a lesson.
I try to think of something not just interesting, but really broad and open-ended.
That's actually my favorite part of SOLE lessons, is thinking of the big question. And that's one of the things that I do a lot as an instructional coach, is I'll meet with a teacher and we'll talk about, where do we want to go with this unit, what should the kids really get out of it, and should they even be left with questions, because sometimes they should. Not everything is answerable. So that's one of the things I do a lot, is come up with those questions, tie in themes, tie in history, tie in the big picture, not something that's just easy 1, 2, 3.
So it varies by teacher, because when I did an interdisciplinary SOLE lesson with a history teacher, our anticipatory set was about 5 minutes. We posed a question about the cause and effect of epidemics from a global perspective, and then we showed students a video clip about Ebola so that they could really connect with the question. Another SOLE lesson that I did in biology class, I mainly was introducing a project, so we spent the 5 minutes looking over the project and then posing the question.
I present some guidelines to the students as to what will be expected of them, and of course the first time I introduced the guidelines I had to go into them more in depth. The second time it was just a reminder. So always the same guidelines, so I don't have to spend too much time taking away from their time. The second thing I do is introduce an anticipatory video, and the video again is 2 to 3 minutes long. It's not taken away from their research time, but it's to give them, spark their interest, like any anticipatory set. Give them maybe a hint at some of the answers or where they're going with the research. It's really kind of their guide towards, oh, what am I supposed to look into? But it's not from the teacher.
So the discovery phase can range from about 30 to 40 minutes, and my job as teacher is simply to facilitate the self-organized process among the students. And for students who may not have seen a lesson like this before or experienced one, it does take a few times to get used to. But I was very surprised that many students, once they realized that this was completely up to them to find out information to answer their question, and that it wasn't so much about whether their information was the correct answer to the question, but more just about exploring, they seemed to really enjoy it.
I think it gives them some autonomy over that class period or 2 class periods, depending on how long it goes. and especially with teenagers. I try to put a lot in their hands during the class. I think they appreciate that, and with the Sole lesson, the power is pretty much in their hands, and I think that helps engage them a lot.
I think the biggest thing is the collaborative piece. They have to be comfortable in the class. Also, a Sole lesson is very rigorous, so the kids need to be accustomed to being questioned and working really hard and grappling with content and being able to do that kind of thing in order to be comfortable with a Sole lesson. Reporting out is one of the biggest pieces of a Sole lesson, and that's where you really become a student of your students during a Sole lesson, because you're not answering the questions for them, but you're walking around and you're saying, okay, how does this person process? Does this person become a group leader? Does this person, do they have to look things up first or annotate? And when they report out, you find out a lot about how your students learn and what they grasp when they're really left independently. So some groups might not get to what you want them to get to, but that's okay, because as a teacher, you've learned so much about how they learn that you know where to fill in the gaps afterwards.
So that can range from students free-form, just coming up to the front of the class and sharing what they learned. The first time that we did the interdisciplinary Sole lesson, we had each group come up with their poster and share at least one piece of information that was unique. So that was an interesting twist, because students had to therefore go to other groups before the presentations and make sure that they had some unique information. So that helped to make sure there was a really wide range of information. You can have students take notes while their classmates are presenting, or you could simply just have students share out. But it's important that they share with others so that they do feel that ownership over the material that they organized in the work session.
Because in my experience, I have found that anytime you turn things over to students, amazing things happen.
It gives students the ability to think on their own. It gives them, there's not a strict structure where they have to follow like a set of directions. They have the freedom to kind of learn on their own way and kind of hit the questions how they want. If they want to start from the end, they can kind of work their way back. If they want to start from the beginning and work their way forward, it's totally up to them and the group that they're in.
I think it's successful because it's so open and the kids are free to explore whatever they want. You're not handing them a worksheet with questions to answer. Their objective is just the first question that they're presented with. That's the only question they're presented with, and it's so open. I think it really helps engage them and keep them motivated to keep pursuing more information just based on one question.
Students really enjoy working together. They enjoy exploring on the internet, which is their preferred medium of reading and exploring. And they are really, what looks like a difficult question, they're able to solve in 30 to 40 minutes, so they gain great confidence.
And so I think having a lesson like this gives them the opportunity to revert back to that curiosity phase where there's not a whole lot of pressure that they have to learn one specific fact, and it just keeps it really open. It reminds me of taking, like, when I was a kid taking enrichment classes just because. And so I think it's really important to keep that creativity in our schools, and so I think the Sole lesson is a nice way, among all the other different lessons that we're teaching, to kind of keep that creativity there in the classroom. And it's really fun, so.
A Sole lesson works because it's real life. Real life is Sole. You're hit with problems, you're hit with questions, and you have to figure it out. Do you collaborate with somebody? Sometimes yes. Do you look some stuff up? Yes, but you have to put it all together and you have to get those problem-solving skills.